Welcome to Riverdale. I'm your host, Bob Barth, and on this week's episode, we are doing Chapter 8, The Outsiders, with casting director David Rapaport.
Archie.
Betty. Veronica.
Jughead.
I'm Cheryl Blossom.
For one shining moment, we were just kids. The bright neon lights of Pops keeping the darkness at bay.
Now, you guys know David Rapaport casting from these amazing shows: Gossip Girl, the revival of 90210, Tomorrow People, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, now Riverdale. Here's the man himself, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Rapaport. David, how you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thank you so much for having me.
I was probably maybe the grandest introduction I've done.
That was pretty grand.
I
appreciate it.
But it's true. I mean, you guys are responsible for not just Riverdale, all these other shows that are currently on the air. And with the one thing that they all have in common, as much TV does, these are large ensemble pieces with major kind of characters and moving pieces that makes your job challenging and fun.
Challenging and fun. Yeah, those are two good words to describe it, for sure.
So let's talk first about you. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I came out to LA in 2000. I went to Emerson College back in Boston, and I did an internship program which brought me out here in 2000.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I've been out here doing this for 17 years now.
That's so great. Personal side note, my brother is a graduate of Emerson.
No way. What year?
He would have been 2000. He probably would have, because he moved to New York right around 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
Brian Barth, he was a theater major.
I wasn't in theater. It was a small department. I mean, it's a small school, as you know. I'm sure we crossed paths. I'm sure. There were maybe 2,000 undergrad.
Yeah.
But what an amazing school and an amazing opportunity to be able to come out here and do an internship program and learn from people who are actually working in the business. Yeah,
and in fact, Emerson has a brand new, a relatively new facility.
Yeah, a couple years old. It's like $100 million building on Sunset Boulevard.
It's gorgeous.
State of the art, gorgeous building.
So you, at what age were you when sort of the idea of film, television took hold? Like you became fascinated?
In the womb, maybe. I mean, as far as back as I can remember, I've always loved film and television and pop culture specifically.
Yep.
I always went to movies opening weekends. I watched every single TV show. I was just obsessed with pop culture. I cannot remember a time when I wasn't watching TV or going to the movies or thinking about what movie was coming out. So to be working in an industry and specifically on shows that people are talking about that are part of pop culture that's a dream come true. It doesn't feel real, honestly.
So it must blow your mind when like the cover of Entertainment Weekly has the stars of 3 of your biggest shows.
Oh, it's unreal. I have a huge poster of it up in my office.
Yeah.
I mean, that when Stephen Amell, Melissa Benoist, and Grant Gustin were on the cover of Entertainment Weekly, that was just a career highlight for me. And personally, I just stared at that cover because I've been reading Entertainment Weekly since I was a kid,
Yeah.
And knowing someone that's on the cover and being a part of something, like that was just, there are no words to explain it. I felt proud. I felt excited. I felt involved. I felt a part of Hollywood, something that I always wanted to be a part of before. I just felt included for the first time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now it's not one show or 2 shows. It's a whole bunch.
A whole bunch of shows. Keeps us really busy.
Yeah. So for Riverdale, let's talk a little bit about how it first comes to you.
Sure. Well, I had been working with Roberto, who is the creator and showrunner, on Supergirl, the season previous to this, and Greg Berlanti and Sarah Schechter, who are the producers, mega producers, came to me and said, "Do you want to consider doing Riverdale?" And I tried to act really cool, but I have to tell you, I have since given these to Roberto a trunk of Archie comics back at home. I mean, this was my obsession as a child as well.
Sure.
I oddly enough never read Arrow or Flash comic books until maybe a couple of years ago, but Archie, I had volumes and volumes of Archie comics. And I tried to keep it cool around Roberto when we were doing casting for Supergirl, and I knew that they were developing Riverdale, and Sarah and Greg had talked to me about it. I tried to be sly, but I'm not sure. You'll have to ask him if I ever showed how excited I was about it. But I would say 6 months before we actually shot the pilot, it became real, and they said, we want to bring you on early to start casting before the pilot was officially picked up.
Right.
And we worked our butts off for 6 months doing this international search, and it was one of the hardest, most rewarding jobs I've ever had because, as I said, I didn't really read the other comic books with the exception of Archie, so it was the first time I had such a close connection to these characters and these storylines, and I wanted to do right not only by the fans, but by Greg and Sarah and Roberto and the creator and creator's grandson of Archie Comics, John Goldwater. I mean, it was a huge undertaking, and I felt a lot of pressure, but I also felt an enormous responsibility to these characters. But it was just so exciting. The adrenaline for those 6 months was out of control.
I bet. And also, what was your feeling about? You were familiar with, as I was a kid too, with the Archie comics and these kind of very specific archetypes. This new iteration, this new, flesh and blood. How did you respond to it?
I love the idea of reinventing the comic in a way, and we've done that with Arrow and Flash and Supergirl as well, and giving our own spin on it. I don't know that the old archetypes would have held up as well in a modern day show, especially for CW. So I feel like to modernize it like this makes sense, but also the way that Roberto wrote that pilot script, it blew my mind. It was one of the funniest, darkest, most intriguing scripts I had read in a long time, and I love the teen genre. I love, obviously I did Gossip Girl. I know Roberto mentioned here My So-Called Life was a big turning point for him in TV, and it was for me as well. So it made sense, and it seemed like the right time, and I never questioned it. I think, he's obviously done such a great job with the show since. Yeah,
and you're absolutely right. That pilot script, having had the opportunity to read it before I saw an assembly of the pilot, the characters are crystal clear.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure. And that's both exciting and terrifying for a casting director.
Oh, interesting.
Because I knew exactly what we were looking for. But it was so specific to find specific people that match the essence of those characters that you and I both know from childhood and then also have been expanded in this pilot. Is really difficult. If I could birth them, I would. So you're really trying to find those specific people that have no shortcuts, that really fulfill all the needs of the character. But they were so fleshed out in the pilot and so crystal clear to me.
Right. Well, we're gonna, before we go into the episode 108, I want to, and along the way as we go through 108, we'll start talking about some specific characters and their casting. But I definitely want to start our conversation with the casting our lead for. Now, I'm going to state this, and you're not allowed to refute it. I have spoken to most of our cast. They all unequivocally love you.
Oh, I love them too.
So much so that typically we were doing many of these podcast interviews in the writer's room, which is about 2 doors down from your office.
Correct.
When any of them remembered exactly where they were like, oh, wait a minute, I need to say hi to David.
Oh.
And it isn't just, sure, there is the business obligatory, I need to say hi to David because, work.
Yes, I get that.
But they all adore you, and they speak. Feel free to listen to the other episodes with them because they speak very highly of you.
Look, this project was so important to me, and actors are so important to me. For them to come into my office and feel comfortable and do well, it's an extension of me selfishly for them to do well. I'm a champion of actors. I want them to feel supported, and I fought for so many of these kids. A lot of these kids are new, they're newer in the industry, and I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to know that they were coming into a safe, supported environment where they could play, they could be creative, what have you, and wanted to make sure those lines of communication were clear between myself and the producers, and they knew exactly what was needed of them. Right. It wasn't just about booking a job, it was about a creative process and including them in the process. And in that 6 months process, you do become pretty close to these people, and you root for them. You become their cheerleaders, and some of them, who didn't get the job, I'm still really close with, and the ones that did, I'm thrilled for. It all made sense in the end, but it's really nice to hear that, because I do feel they're all very, very special people.
And they all have such, and we're now going to get the opportunity to hear it from your perspective, but every audition, every casting procedure is extraordinarily unique to the individual, unique to the job. And hearing their stories from some of the wildest ones, like Ashley Murray, her story is amazing. Mm-hmm. It's a tough process, and it's tough from casting. It's tough especially if actors are not a known quantity, like some of the parents are, like Cole Sprouse is. If it's the job that's going to keep you in town and keep, food in your pantry and clothing on your body,
There's a lot of pressure walking into that room. I give them a lot of credit. Every single person that walks in, there's so much on the line, and they walk into a space much like this. Yeah. It's sort of with faces they don't know. You expect them within moments to be vulnerable, to do a love scene, a fight scene, to really share so much of themselves with us, and then leave, and then maybe never hear from us again. And that's got to be so tough. I don't know how they do it. So I want them to feel, as supported as possible when they cross that threshold, so to speak.
And I think job well done, because that seems to be the overwhelming response from all of them, is that even though it's a crazy process, that they all did feel comforted, and you knew that, Madeleine is actually a great example. I'm sure we'll get to talk to her later, but talk about her specifically later. But her story was that you had called her in for an episode of
it was Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends, yeah,
to play a character actually called Betty. It was I think they went, if I remember correctly, don't quote me even though I'm on the radio with this, but I think they went to the 1950s and this sort of like Pollyanna Betty prototype from the original Archies.
Yeah.
And she did such a great job, and we ended up hiring somebody else, obviously, but I kept her in mind. And I always tell actors, you're not really interviewing or auditioning for the job at hand. I'm always keeping you in mind for other things. And luckily Riverdale came about pretty quickly, and we actually brought her in for Betty first, and then thought, oh my God, she'd be a perfect Cheryl. The more I got to know her personality matched Cheryl so much better than Betty. In real life, she's the most amazing, nice girl, but she has that wicked turn. She knows how to turn it on. Yeah. The sort of that wildness in her eye, the kind of demented cheerleader we like to say. She knows how to play that, and she's just incredible.
She is. The interview I did was with her and Lily, who live together.
Right.
And so, but you're absolutely right.
And Lily,
yeah. No. I was just going to say that Madeleine is just such a character, and big and very funny. And so I can see where, lights go off and you're like, I think I know who this girl is.
It took me a while to figure her out, but once I did, I could not get it out of my head. I mean, she is Cheryl Blossom. It's unreal. What I was going to say about Lily is that I've known Lily since she was 14 years old. She actually auditioned for the Thea role on Arrow in the pilot, as did Melissa Benoist, who is now Supergirl. And so getting to know Lily over the years, to me, she's a Betty. I put her in that pile. I knew in and out she was a Betty. And so much more than just a Betty. I mean, she has such an emotional depth for somebody that young. I cannot take my eyes off of her. Not just she's so beautiful, obviously, but her understanding of the material goes beyond what I ever could have imagined for this role, honestly. And it's one of those things where I couldn't see her play any other role. Yeah. But that's from having known her for a while and read her a bunch.
And that's, she does a remarkable job, and this has come up in many conversations, including with her, that, the archetype of Betty is that she is the epitome of the girl next door. Mm-hmm. And in the pilot, she does that job remarkably. Mm-hmm. She, when she's heartbroken, standing on the porch or on the sidewalk there and asking Archie to love her, you feel everything you're supposed to feel. Mm-hmm. She's right on par. But then Betty turns a corner in almost every episode and does something that is so surprising and yet so believable. And so as a casting director, you have to be able to know, yeah, this girl does this very well, but has to be not a one-trick pony.
Right.
She's got to be an actress that is really able to handle just about anything you throw at her.
In series, hopefully many years this will run, and you have to know, based on a couple of auditions, that they're going to, run the course with this show, and be able to give the writers everything that they give them back. That's why casting is so difficult, and that's why you go through so many steps. And even someone like, to go back to Cole Sprouse, for example, who is an established actor and came to the show as an established actor. He went through the process as well, auditioning with the producers and going into multiple studio and network tests. With Cole, it was never so much about his performance or ability. I mean, Cole's amazing. I think because we brought him in at the beginning, that casting was more about tonally, is this who Jughead is going to be in this pilot and in this series? Because he brings a darker tone to it. Yeah. There's something really kind of tortured in his take on Jughead, which a lot of other guys who came in who were pretty brilliant as well just didn't have. And so bringing him through that process was really interesting because he hasn't done that in a while. He hadn't tested in a while. He hadn't done chemistry tests in a while. He's a celebrity. He's been offered a lot of things, and I think he took a little break from acting as well. So yeah, they all go through different hoops to get these jobs, so to speak.
The one character that I don't remember being as fleshed out on the page, and part of it I think is because he's not in it a whole bunch, is Jughead in the pilot.
Right.
So was the idea then, did you know by the time you were casting, this is we're going in a kind of darker tone, and we are in many ways really straying from the book?
For sure. I mean, with the addition of Jason Blossom's murder, I knew immediately what the tone was going to be a little bit different from the comic books. In regards to Cole, that was a big decision for all of us, because I think he also read it a little bit darker than we'd even imagined it. As the narrator of the story, I think in my own mind I had thought about it as a little bit brighter, and Cole just brought an element to it which was so exciting, which was so dark and so engaging. And I think that's what I enjoy about casting. And I always tell actors this: we don't necessarily know what we're looking for. We have an idea. If we knew exactly what we wanted, we would make an offer.
Right.
And there aren't many kids in the 19 to 23-year-old range who, I don't want to say deserve an offer, but necessarily are right for an offer. And this was an opportunity to really discover kids. And I feel like in a way we rediscovered Cole in a different way, seeing him in a completely different role than a lot of us know him from. Yeah. And he brought his own take to the character, a different element, even beyond what was written on the page. So he really surprised me in the whole process. Yeah,
and I think that's really symbolic of how the evolution of the show works, including I remember watching a first assembly, or possibly second, of the pilot, and knowing the characters as I knew them. And I had already had the privilege of reading the script. It took me about the third act of going, oh, these are who these characters are. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I recognize that Betty's blonde and Veronica's a brunette, and Jughead has the crown, and Archie's redheaded and is the straight guy. But this is different, and do I like this? Mm-hmm. And including specifically Jughead's performance and portrayal, it's giving me something that I didn't know that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And then by the end, especially at the end of the pilot, now I just want so much more of that. It's, but from a casting perspective, from a producing perspective, it's going way out there.
It really is.
To go, okay, we're going to take a shot at this and hope to God that the audience responds.
Mm-hmm. It's every pilot you do, every show you do, there's such a great risk, and especially with this, where there was such fantastic source material to work from. I just think it was the pilot sort of being our Bible was such a smartly written pilot that there were no holes. It was are we okay inside? Oh, there I am. I'm back on. Yeah, I agree with you. I think what's so exciting about these characters too is, as you said, they're so surprising. Yeah. They're not just one way or the other, and you never quite know where they're going to go, which is fun for me to watch the show as a fan too, to really see the actors that I have cast, to watch their performances, and they've all handled everything the writers have thrown at them. I'm so impressed with them. I really am.
Absolutely. How about let's talk a little bit about Camilla.
Camilla came out of New York. I think we probably read her the most. She probably read 5 times in New York. We flew her out here, tested her. That was a really, really tough role. There's always one on every show. There's always one that takes a long time. And I mean, she is, to me, such a breakout in the pilot and in the series altogether. I could not have imagined anybody else. But in that process, it's hard. You're putting together an ensemble, and she's a perfect example of someone who didn't have a lot of experience beforehand. I think she may have done a web series that I didn't want anyone to watch because it was really low rent. It was awful. And she consistently performed every time she came into audition. Right. And I think it was towards the end of the process, and it was everyone kind of getting on the same page and wrapping their minds around it. And, look, on every show I've ever done, people have always questioned the casting from the get-go. People question Blake Lively and Leighton Meester on Gossip Girl. I can't tell you how many people on many different levels said, I don't know if these girls are right for it, I'm not, what have you. And now they'll take it back, of course. It was always their idea from the get-go. But Camilla, just that girl is such a star, I think, in and out. She's so wonderful, and surprisingly the least like her character. I think maybe that's why, for me, when I have to think about why it was such difficult casting, we talk about Madeleine and Lily being so close to their characters. Camilla's almost a Betty in a sense. I think if you met her on the street, there's something very sweet about her. She's intelligent. She's well educated. She's articulate. She's put together. There doesn't seem to be a mean bone in her body. Yeah. And what I like about Veronica, she's not just the typical mean girl. There's a lot more to her. But I think on meeting Camilla, I don't see Veronica immediately. And that was what was difficult, is once we visualized her with the hair and the pearls and the whole thing, it all kind of came together, and it was magic. Yeah. Real magic.
Yeah, I think Sarah Schechter talks about it a little bit, trying to convince people and going, no, you need to picture this girl with pearls.
I'm telling you, the pearls. But look, I get it. It's sometimes it's a hairstyle, it's a clothing choice, what have you. It's difficult. I think everyone had a specific vision in their mind of what this character looked like, and Camilla was gorgeous before the Veronica makeover, and she's gorgeous afterward. But she definitely looks like Veronica now. Yeah. Like what we all have in our mind, I think. She looks like she stepped out of the comic book, which is crazy.
But you're right. Having the opportunity to meet her on a couple occasions, she is a little scrappy and a little girl next door.
She's very girly.
But very, very just open and so pleasant. I mean, these kids, everyone that I've met, you guys like knocked out his park as far as just solid human beings, which is not always the case.
It's not always the case. I gotta say, I also say a lot too that we're like HR people. We really have to. We spend a lot of time with these people. I want to make sure they're going to be nice to each other, to other actors, producers, directors, what have you. These are all amazing people. They're all supportive of each other. Yeah, they all have fun. They root for each other. I hope it all continues. Season 2. And I want to take back when I said Camilla was girly. I didn't mean girly in a negative way. I just meant like she's very feminine, and not uptight, not like Veronica.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then now this is the one that is. I mean, they're all amazing stories. This one is that I probably have brought up on numerous occasions.
Can I guess? Is it KJ?
It's got to be KJ. Yeah. The fact, and I'm going to paraphrase what I said when I interviewed Roberto. You had to go to the other side of the world to find someone without red hair.
Yep.
How does that come to be?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I remember Roberto came down the first day we started casting because he wanted to see all the redheads in the hallway. And I mean, it was almost hilarious. The halls were filled with kids sitting on the floor and on chairs with red hair, and everyone who's grown up with red hair thinks they're Archie too. They all come in and we read a ton of great kids. And at first, I'll be honest, I really was focused on the red hair. I wanted to find a ginger who could play guitar and sing and act and do all that stuff. I wanted to find that magical unicorn. And we found a couple, but, weren't necessarily the kid.
Right.
And I'll tell you my version of the story.
Okay,
you may have heard others,
great.
but KJ had come in for me for a pre-read. And basically what a pre-read is when an actor that I don't know, I haven't had much experience with, comes in and auditions with me before I bring them in for the producers. So I pre-select them. And we see probably thousands of kids, both in the room, in person, on tape. We have casting people in New York, Australia, UK, Vancouver, and then people all over the world send in tapes. KJ actually was signed by an agency here, but was from New Zealand, and he had flown in from New Zealand. I didn't know this at the time, but had flown in right before the audition. And he had a lot of buzz about him. He was coming out in this movie, Dog's Purpose, and I was really excited to meet him and read with him. Really nice kid. My initial thoughts were super heavy accent. Didn't quite get the material. Good look. I could not imagine him as a redhead. Didn't know anything about his singing ability, what have you, and I passed on him. Read him, said thank you very much. Let's keep looking. We tested, I would say maybe 6, maybe 8 guys at the studio. We could not find our Archie. I mean, we had to find the it guy. And a casting executive once told me, sometimes look backward instead of forward. See what you already saw. Maybe you missed something. And towards the end of the process, the only role we really hadn't cast yet was Archie. And I was desperate and scared and thinking, oh my God, where am I going to find this kid? So I started looking back through my notes and seeing, who did I see before that maybe I should give a second shot to? And KJ's name came up, and I thought, you know what? Why not? He's maybe I missed something. Maybe he had a bad day. Sometimes actors do. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I'll be lucky. Chances are I won't be. He came in, and he blew me away. And I remember saying to him, what the hell happened in the last 4 months? What happened? I don't understand, because this is a completely different person, completely different audition. And he said, look, I had just gotten off the plane. I wasn't, comfortable with the accent. I didn't know the material that well. I just wanted to come in and not just meet me, but come in for the project, because that was his appointment time. Right. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't skip you before, or I'm so glad I brought you back in. And luckily I had a producer session right after, and I brought him right back in. He performed the same way in the producer session. So I thought, okay, thank God this wasn't a fluke.
Right.
We had him, do it several times, and then we put him through the testing process, and each time he got better and better and better. And I watched his confidence grow and his playfulness grow. With that confidence, he was able to play with the material a little bit more and be a little bit more comfortable. And as I said, each time it got better and better and better. And he had told me through that final pre-read process that he could sing and play guitar. But when he pulled out his guitar and sang to us, I mean, we all kind of looked around the room like, do not let this kid leave the room. Like, we have found our Archie. I mean, it was, it's rare that it happens like that, but I think we all knew it. And it took me saying no to him once to kind of get it to the place where he was ready and we were ready to, kind of all go into business together, so to speak.
And how great that even for you, having been a casting director now for many years up to this point, that you're still learning something that I'm sure you will take well into your future now.
I'm afraid to let anyone leave the room now. I have this thing with all those tapes that we get. We get tapes from the middle of nowhere, and I watch every single one because I am terrified that the one tape I don't watch will be the one. Because ultimately, you just need one person. Right. You need one special person, and it takes going through a lot of stuff to find that special person. But I'm so glad we comb back through it again, and man, because he's Archie, he's the show, the kid is such a star, and I'm excited to see what he does next beyond this too. I just feel like he has so much potential.
Oh, and he's such a fan favorite. And, and again, another guy. It was hysterical when I was doing questions with Madeleine and Lily, and one of them was, what is it like to work with Cole Sprouse? Of course, everyone wants to know. And they were like, oh, relax, he's a human being. Then, of course, how does it work? What's it like to work with KJ? And these two young women just melt. Really? He is, and every single person, whether I ask them or not, will easily volunteer that KJ is the sweetest human being.
He is. He's a really, really good guy. I think that's really rare too, I'll be honest with you, because I read a lot of young guys in Hollywood who have a chip on their shoulder, have some sort of ego, And there's nothing about him that is fame hungry, that is in this for anything other, I think, than the art.
Yeah.
I just think he's just a really, really good person.
And
really good person.
extremely, as far as the art is concerned, and we definitely see this in the finale, committed actor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But so great that you are willing to go back and give someone a second shot and to go, you know what, there is something there.
Absolutely.
It's and like you've said, and it's true, I think, for most casting directors, when an actor walks into the room, they want you to be the actor.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
If I could have done this pilot in 1 week as opposed to 6 months, oh my God, are you kidding me? Yeah, I always want them to do well. It is magic though. Honestly, I don't know how to describe it when it works, when someone's right for the role. Again, like Lily, I'm just obsessed with her. I think she's an amazing person, amazing actress, but she wasn't right for the Thea role when she was 14, and luckily she didn't get that role because it led to this.
Yeah.
So in some weird way, it happens for a reason, I guess.
This show does have a considerable amount of music, and lo and behold, almost everyone, with the exception of Jughead, does some performing.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
More
That's
or
very
less.
true.
How much? Obviously, that came up with Archie and Josie. That would definitely come up with. How much into it did you consider musical ability of other cast members?
I didn't at all.
Didn't at all?
No.
All right.
Because you never really know what is going to be asked of these actors at a certain point. I mean, they all have their special skills in their resume, and I assume they're all lying until you ask them to do something. The only ones I knew that were going to sing, whether in the pilot or beyond, were going to be Archie and Josie.
Sure.
I had no idea that Madeleine was going to rap. I thought that was really cool. I thought she was great. She's little Iggy Azalea.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with her. But no, I mean, they're all supremely talented. It makes me question what I'm doing wrong. What are my special skills on my resume? But
casting. I think
casting,
you
I guess I
definitely
got
have
that one right,
casting
yeah.
down. No, this is such a well-rounded cast, and we will get into some more specifics with others later on. But we're going to dig right now into episode 108. So at the top here of Act 1, Keller is interviewing Polly. Polly explains Jason was doing a one-time drug run for runaway money. A drug run for the Serpents. Hermione kicks Keller out. Polly doesn't want to overstay her welcome at the lodges. Polly gets upset over her parents not accepting the baby. After that, over at the Andrews house, Jug and Archie are playing video games. Fred comments on the stench in the room, and Fred's got a big day in the morning. He's going to break down on Sodale. There's so many great scenes with Fred, and let's talk about this. I was going to save it for later, but there's no time like the present. Luke Perry is amazing.
He's phenomenal.
And
he's Luke Perry.
And he's Luke Perry. I mean, yes, he is Luke Perry. Stunt casting, a lot of the shows that you work on, a lot of the DC shows that you work on, love to do, and I hate to say it, stunt casting, sort of the term sort of belittles what it is.
Sure.
But it's going after people who in some way reflect maybe the source material of like, for example, on a lot of the superhero shows, we have casting of characters who have possibly played the role before or within that universe.
On Supergirl, we do a lot of that for sure.
Yeah, and it's a fun nod, fun Easter eggs for the fans. On Riverdale, the touchstones of this show from day one were always, and Sarah Schechter spoke about this, Twin Peaks, Beverly Hills 90210, John Hughes films. And so, Sarah said, one of the things that was very important to her, and you can tell me if it was important to you as well, was to look at the casts of those shows.
Oh, for sure. I mean, ultimately, my goal was to find the best actor for the role.
Right.
And Luke specifically came in and auditioned for it and really blew us all away. I mean, I watched him on 90210. I was a fan of him then, but he has grown so much as an actor. It's, at first he walks in the room and we're all fangirling for him and everyone's excited to see him. And he's as nice and professional as can be and no ego. And he really connected to that role. I mean, what you saw in the pilot, that first scene with Archie when he's asking him if he's lying to him, yes, about the football and about music, what have you. That was one of the audition scenes, and it broke our heart in the audition room. And to lean in during an audition, to feel like you're sort of listening in on someone's conversation as opposed to watching a performance or a play, what have you. That's what was happening with Luke. I looked around and we were all just staring straight at him. We were all so emotionally involved in the scene because of him. So to me, yes, he brought a whole audience with him. He was a hot teen now playing the dad of a hot teen, and it made a lot of sense pop culture wise, but also he was the best actor for the role. He was the best actor that auditioned for the role. And I think once he was set, we had started conversations about, well, we don't want to over stunt cast it, and is it going to be weird if we bring in someone like, just for example, Jenny Garth to play the mom? Is that going to be too much of a throwback? Is it going to people take them out of this? We want them to feel like this is a new, fresh show. Right. We're not kind of recycling people. And so instead of thinking about offering it to other people of that ilk, we read the best actors and actresses, and Machen Amick came in and again blew us away. And it was one of those things where it was a happy accident where, yes, she does mean something in that sense because she comes from a huge 90s show, as does Luke. She comes from Twin Peaks, for those of you who don't know.
That's right.
And which is really cool. So it made a lot of sense. And, for Marisol Nichols, who again blew us away and was so perfect, I think for a lot of people, she's a new face, new discovery. But for me, I remember her from Vegas Vacation.
Yep, absolutely.
And so to me, she's sort of that, she comes from that kind of 90s world as well, in a way. And it all kind of ties together. It never feels, to me at least, too stunty. It never feels like we're trying to cast people from that era. We were very specific about it. I will say it became a bit of a theme in series, casting Skeet Ulrich and casting Molly Ringwald. But again, I think because those people were also both so right for their roles.
Yeah.
I mean, Skeet had auditioned for us for Legends of Tomorrow, I believe, for the pilot. And I showed his audition to everybody. When they first mentioned FP, I thought, oh my God, this guy's so perfect. They have to go for him. And showed them that audition. And it was FP. I mean, that's exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And Molly, I think Molly's just so great. It's Molly Ringwald,
Yeah.
And I think pulling people from different venues, from film and TV from the 90s to play these parents is cool. It wasn't, so to kind of go back to your original point, it wasn't necessarily my purpose to stunt cast these roles. It just kind of happened a little bit more organically than being mandated to do so.
Well, it's lightning in a bottle because you're absolutely right. These are touchstone actors of a very specific period in time, but they are all killing it on this show. And I would venture to say Luke Perry, and I certainly was a teenager watching Beverly Hills 90210. This may be the most amazing role that he's ever played, at least as a viewer. He's blowing me away. He does, you know what it is? It's you get very locked into as a viewer of the thing that they do, and they may do it very well. But when you can defy expectations and give a layered performance to something that could be played very flatly, very two-dimensionally. God, Luke is amazing.
He is. Every scene with him and Archie, it just it really touches me. And especially in this episode, I feel like Archie becomes the guardian in a sense. He's really looking out for his dad for one of the first times. And the two of them just play so well off of each other. I think Luke, has a son around that age and really understands that relationship. And you just, God, you feel it.
And I've been fortunate enough to meet Luke a couple of times. We were not able to schedule him on a podcast this season, hopefully season 2.
Yeah.
But one of the nicest guys in the world, ridiculously nice.
I mean, I think he texted me around the pilot, just, like, congrats, brother, I'm so excited. And, like, I showed it to my sister, and I was like, oh, my God, Luke Perry texted me. But when it gets down to it, like, he was just as excited about this show getting picked up and the opportunity of doing the show as these kids were who were doing their first show ever.
Yeah.
I think what was so special about this pilot is that someone like Luke Perry, who has so much success in this industry, was as thrilled and committed to this show turning out well as these people who had never really done much before.
Right.
And this was going to be their first big break. And that's what was so amazing to me. I think he was a real father figure to the actors on the set. He gave them a lot of advice, talked about his experience with working on a set, with fame, at a young age, all that stuff. And it was funny being up there. I went up there for the pilot for a little bit. And some of the younger actors, when he would come around and talk about, well, this is what happened in my day, they kind of roll their eyes like, oh, there's Uncle Luke, giving us his advice. And to me, I'm thinking like, guys, this is Luke Perry. Listen, he went through it. And, I think you have to let everyone go through their own thing, and it's their own path, and they have to make their own mistakes, what have you. But I know he cares for the kids and the adults in the cast as if they were his own. He really does. I mean, he's just such a exceptional guy.
And he must be, and I know you know this, one of the difficult parts about being, I think television in particular, a television actor especially, is when you have that sort of starring role earlier on in your career. People have a tendency to only see you as, in Luke Perry's case, the cool, tough guy.
Right.
So, for Riverdale, it's a nice nod of the hat to bring him on to play Fred Andrews. But is it going to be a multi-layered performance? And from Luke's perspective, maybe, I don't know that he was getting a lot of other opportunities similar to this. So, yeah, I mean, it's giving them these kind of great opportunities to grow past some of their stereotypes.
Absolutely. I also really love his relationship with Skeet on the show. I think the two of them are terrific together, and the way he looks out for him and the way that Archie looks out for Jughead. It's so beautifully written. They all just play it so well. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and Skeet too is good. Whenever I hear people, and it is I think you would even say a fair criticism that CW has the most beautiful people on TV.
Absolutely.
But Skeet is, and oftentimes in this show, hard to look at.
Really?
It's a grizzled performance. He is not. I mean, obviously, it's the character that he's playing, but he is not cleaned up, and so much so that it's like you can almost smell him through the screen, as they might say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that he's doing a great job.
He really is.
He's doing a great job then.
He really is. Let's get back into the show. Back at Riverdale High, the gang is talking before school, and they updates them on Polly. Veronica suggests a baby shower for Polly to help her feel loved and wanted and bring the family together. Alice arrives, calls Betty and Veronica out. Over at the Andrews construction trailer, Hermione listens to Fred's concerns about Sodale. Vic arrives, pulls his crew from Fred's work. Clifford Blossom has hired them for a 2-year project, and Fred, there's no way he can compete with a 10-month project. Then Betty and Veronica take a tongue lashing from Alice about harboring Polly. She can come to the baby shower, be a part of Polly and the baby's life, or she can stay away. And then Archie arrives home with pizza and finds Fred on the phone stressed. He can't find his crew. Blossom has hired them all. Archie presses Fred to come clean, and he confesses that the business is in trouble. And it's these, I always refer to Fred Andrews as the perfect father. Not infallible. He has made some questionable decisions, but very few by comparison to the other insane parents on the show. But he's the dad that I think everyone wants because he listens to you, and he's kind of a goofball. And it's such a pleasure to watch.
Archie calls him the third roommate at the beginning of the
third
episode.
Roommate, yeah.
I like that.
At top of Act 2, Betty and Veronica pitch the shower to Polly and Hermione. Betty will try to get Alice there, and Polly wants the Blossoms to come. Hermione's concerned about having a Blossom Cooper war in her house. That's a foregone conclusion. Veronica wants things resolved so she can get her bed back. Well, over to the Blossom Manor, Fred confronts Clifford about hiring all his crew away. Cliff wants the project to fail, regardless of casualties, so he can purchase the land his family started their business on at a cheaper price. And in this scene, we're going to get classic Luke Perry, cool as a cucumber, and refers to Clifford to his face as a pompous ass, which is like a great moment because Clifford is an arch nemesis on this show.
Oh,
there's
for sure.
Unlike just about everyone else, there's actually no redeeming quality of Clifford that is easily seen.
He dresses nice.
True. He dresses very well. His house is very gothic and enormous. He loves his syrup. Over to the construction trailer, Hermione probes Fred. Clifford doesn't know she's the secret buyer, and there's a commotion outside. It's Archie and the gang. The football players, they're showing up to work, and they're going to help out after practice and weekends till Fred is able to get a crew. Now, let's talk a little bit about Casey, who plays Kevin. Only because, there's all kinds of reasons to talk about him. Specifically, he has a great little throwaway at the end of the scene where all of these guys show up to do the construction, and as they are about to go to work, he very quickly and silently acknowledges Hermione's boots. Love your boots.
That was amazing.
It's such a great throwaway, and if you missed it the first time, I urge you to go back and check
watch
it again.
It's worth it
because it's hysterical.
Almost as good as at Jason's memorial when Cheryl walks down in the outfit that she was wearing when the day that they went out in the pilot, and he I forget what he said, but his reaction was just incredible.
Yeah, Casey is sharp as a tack.
Really sharp.
So how did he enter?
So Casey was cast out of New York. We had Meg Simon and Finley Davidson casting out of New York, and basically we were all seeing all the characters in each city. And I think Kevin Keller was the last role that was cast. It was a guest star in the pilot. It's a guest star this whole season. And we couldn't find it here. It's such a fine balance between comedy and drama. And we wanted someone that wasn't too big and wasn't going to also wasn't going to throw the jokes completely away.
Right.
And Casey, I believe, was at school at Carnegie Mellon. He had previously read on tape for us for Jughead. And to be honest, it wasn't right for Jughead, so we sort of forgot about him. And I didn't know him well enough. Then our cast directors in New York did. And sort of in a last-minute moment, they put him on tape in New York. He didn't really know the material all that well, but he just organically was so close to this character, that their sense of humor at least, that he nailed it. And watching that on tape, again, it was another one of those moments where we're like, oh my God, this kid's perfect. We got to get him. And it was unanimous. And I think that was the first time he'd ever been on film, was his first day in the pilot, which was the scene in the high school when they're walking through and he meets Veronica for the first time.
Right.
He is such a standout in the pilot to me. I think he's terrific.
Yeah.
And has this sort of 1950s, 1940s movie star quality look about him.
I agree.
Such a find. I totally credit New York with him. They did such a great job finding him.
Now, is that an office of yours that is in New York? How does that work?
So Meg Simon and Finley work for Warner Brothers in New York. So we work hand in hand. We work in tandem when we do a pilot. So basically our office is the lead office overseeing other casting directors in different locations. And these other casting directors are hired by Warner Brothers to basically do all their pilots. So for example, we hire a woman, Kate Dowd in the UK, who probably does 20 pilots at once. So she puts people on tape for Riverdale. At the same time, she's putting people on tape for whichever pilot they're doing this season. And we ask them to put people on tape for us, and they go out and do their searches as well. And so we watch those tapes and filter them through before we then send them on to the producers. Mm-hmm. So we narrow down, hundreds of their selects as well.
Yeah.
It's a process. Yeah.
It is. And to go back to the portrayal of Kevin, it in the pilot, is interesting. So I see a lot of the social media stuff with this podcast, among other things, and the live tweeting, and of course their fans love the show. And then there are a lot of people who are just outspoken about things that they feel need to be addressed. One of the things that was addressed very early on was, is Kevin going to just be this kind of stereotypical gay best friend, which could very easily have been and probably would have worked just fine. With an amazing combination of great writing and a really honest portrayal by Casey, that character has evolved in my eyes into so much more.
I agree.
And so much more to come as well. But it's an honesty that that he brings to that character. I mean, you are allowed to, and this is the hard part, and it must be hard for you guys as well. You are allowed to be gay, a best friend to a woman, smart and witty and have quips, and yet have other layers beyond that.
Absolutely. And as a gay man watching this character, I was so just, I don't even know what the word is, honestly. I don't know that I'd ever seen a character that was openly gay, wasn't, conflicted about his sexuality, wasn't dealing with coming out of the closet or being bullied or what have you, just was living his life as everyone else was and was accepted. And it was so refreshing and eye-opening. And again, as a fan of the show, it's one of my favorite characters because it's just real. It's honest. I see there's a lot of gay content out there that is about the coming out process, which is important and hugely important and helped me a lot with my own process. But now, being out to see someone, especially in high school, that's got to be, I can't even imagine having watched a TV show in high school where there was an out gay character who wasn't being bullied, every second of the day, who had a boyfriend, who had a relationship, who told the guy he was seeing that I don't want to date someone that's in the closet. I want to date someone that's out and sort of have a very happy, healthy relationship. I mean, that's pretty progressive, and just really, really important. So again, it leads into me wanting to make every single role that we cast as authentic as possible, because this is not just entertainment. This is really changing the way that people see the world. I really do believe that, because I think it's really changed my point of view as well, and I hope that it's changing a lot of other people's point of view.
I think what I love about it, I did a interview earlier this morning with a couple of our writers on a later episode that will be available later. But one of the things that I talked about in that was how beautifully written the gay relationships, in particular, Kevin Keller and his father. In an earlier episode, Kevin's about to go out to a party, and you can almost, growing up watching television and seeing so much, you can easily write, you kind of know what's coming. And what subverts expectations so beautifully is that Sergeant Keller, it's very normal.
It's very normal. It's the same. It's almost the same as if Archie was saying, I'm going to a party.
Absolutely.
Don't get in trouble, kid.
And the advice is simply just don't get in trouble.
Do
be with friends and do the right thing, and don't get yourself in trouble. And I love the normalcy of it, especially with, I have a 9-year-old son, and we watch the show together. And I have to say, also very similar themes this past season on Supergirl, where to be able to expose him at a young age to, lots of different kinds of people, and there's nothing wrong with it or different or odd. It just is. Little kids get that.
Absolutely.
Because there's no other expectations. No one's being silly about it.
It's the same way I got the opposite message growing up, that it was not okay, because a lot of gay characters I saw on television were, were just really negative stereotypes.
Right.
And were butts of jokes, what have you. So it's it could not be more important. And I'll tell you a secret, about my career wise. I think I the way I got into this whole business with Greg Berlanti, who's the executive producer overseeing all these shows, is again, as another out gay man, working on both shows dealing with, that were about gay men, and also shows that were not about gay men but had gay characters in them. That was someone I wanted to work for. Yeah. I had admired his work long before I even came to Hollywood. And once I was in the business long enough, I reached out to his agent and said, I want to work for this guy. I don't care what he does, whatever he's doing, he's putting right messages out into the world. I think he's making really amazing, smart family entertainment, and I want to be a part of that. And that's how I came to be here. So for me to be a part of something that is telling, these kinds of stories, I go to sleep at night feeling like I'm doing something good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I'm telling you, you absolutely are, because the more people are exposed to this, it makes it normal.
Makes it normal. There's interracial romances. There's young love, old, whatever. It's all these things that had been taboo before that now. It's about love. I'm getting a little bit like hippy dippy here, but it is. The show's really, it's all about love. And I think even some of the choices that Alice Cooper makes in this episode, that Fred makes, that even FP makes with his son, it's all about protecting the people that they love, their children, their boyfriends, their kids, what have you. And I think ultimately that's where it comes from. These people act crazy, but it's because they care so much. Definitely. I think it really is.
Definitely. Well done. Back to the show. Hermione meets with Alice. If Alice wants to be a part of Polly's life, she's going to show up at the baby shower, or she's going to regret it for the rest of her life. At the construction site, Moose likes the work more than the weight room at school. Archie's willing to do what it takes to help his dad, and of course then there's some trouble. They head back to the trailer. Moose has forgotten his phone at the site, heads back, and there's a bunch of goons beating the generator. Moose confronts him, gets the snot beat out of him. The goons are driving away, and Fred's reassured that Moose is going to be fine. And now we're looking for a witness. Great way to end the act there. Act 3. At the construction site, Fred thinks Clifford Blossom has something to do with it. Archie wonders if it's the Serpents. Keller won't monitor Fred's site, and Archie is upset. At the lodge apartment, Polly asks after Alice coming to the shower, asks Betty to be godmother, which is a beautiful, beautiful sequence. Polly will never forget what Betty has done for her. Let's talk a little about the casting of Polly.
Yes.
Because I believe she is Canadian.
She is Canadian. So Sean Cossey, who oversees Canadian casting for us, cast Tiara Scobie out of Vancouver. Tiara had actually read on the pilot for Betty, and we read her for everything. We read her for Supergirl. We read her for pretty much every product I've ever done. I've been a fan of hers for a while, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but she played the Elizabeth Berkley character on the Saved by the Bell TV movie, the behind the scenes of Saved by the Bell.
Wow, I've missed that entirely. Need to see it.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool, and she was actually here, I believe, when Elizabeth Berkley was in the waiting room. I'm trying to remember if this is the right story. They were both auditioning at the same time, and I think she went up to Elizabeth and told her that she had. This is her story, but I believe she went up to Elizabeth and told her that she had played her in the movie, and I don't think Elizabeth had seen it yet, but she was really kind to her, from what I remember. But it's a really, really tough role, a really emotional role. We were looking for somebody who, again, that girl next door with the all-American look, who was really a little bit unhinged, and we don't quite know if it's her or it's her situation that her parents sort of put her in. And
she has a spectacular look for Polly.
Oh, she
just those eyes are between her and Joaquin. The two of them have eyes.
His blue eyes are crazy.
I met him.
You can see right through them.
in an ADR session a couple weeks ago, and someone said, "Oh yeah, he's outside." You say hi. I said, I think hours went by. I was completely lost in his eyes. They're just gorgeous.
They're quite beautiful. Yeah.
After that, back at the chocolate shop, Jughead fills Betty and Veronica in on what happened the previous day with Moose. He and Moose are going to go check out the Serpents bar. Thanks for having my back. At the White Worm. It's a good name for a bar. The guys go into the Serpent Pool Hall to look for the goons. They see the bartender about to feed a python. Another great Kevin Keller moment, looking at the python, scared to death. Moose thinks he sees one of them. Archie confronts him. Big mistake. Archie's constantly surprising, I think, himself, but definitely the audience. Like, I wouldn't have picked Archie to be the guy of, we should definitely enter the biker bar and certainly pick a fight with a stranger.
Right.
But sure enough, he's a man of determination, and
he finally understands
answers.
how much his dad has put on the line for him and is willing to do the same for him. It's a kind of a beautiful moment.
Totally. I completely agree. But Kevin and Moose are held back. He's grabbed. He's threatened by the serpent. Big fist fight. And lo and behold, FP arrives and saves the day. We talked a little bit about Skeet, but what was his audition process like?
Well, Skeet actually didn't audition for this. We straight offered to him based on an audition he had done previously.
Okay.
He came in for Rip Hunter on Legends of Tomorrow, which is played by Arthur Darvill so brilliantly. And again, it was one of those situations where Skeet gave an incredible audition, but wasn't necessarily what we were looking for then. Mm-hmm. But thank God we taped it, and I had it and showed it to the producers. As I said before, he was honestly the first person that came to mind when I heard about this role, and based on that audition. And it was a sort of, we were looking for a roguish kind of Han Solo-esque, like, drinker type, and it lent itself to this character so well. And he's grown to such an interesting actor, Skeet, from, when we all knew him from Scream and movies like that. I'm so glad that we got him. I feel so lucky that he said yes, to do a couple episodes for us.
He's great. And the relationship that he has, the insanely complex relationship that he has with Jughead, he handles masterfully. Mm-hmm. And I'm just say this, keep watching, folks. It is an onion that continues to be peeled back throughout the entire season. So there we are at the top of Act 4. Archie talks to FP, confronts him about being responsible for sabotaging Fred's business as payback. Fred arrives and orders Archie into the truck. Kevin
Keller runs away. It's actually a really great moment watching him run. I'll just leave it at that.
It is. God, Casey, amazing. Back at the lodge apartment, the shower is underway. Cheryl, and by the way, no one makes an entrance like Cheryl.
She's unbelievable.
Just all smile and she's amazing. Cheryl enters with a fancy prom and Nana with gifts. And Cheryl wants to be, Cheryl, of course, would like to be the godmother of the baby. I love it. At the top of the scene, Jughead is, you would think very out of place, but for whatever reason, Jughead has made this shower work for him.
Yep.
And coyly kind of jokes with Betty that, bucket list, baby shower, done.
He gets to kiss Betty, so I guess it was worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Back over to the White Worm, FP and Fred have it out. FP hears that Fred's business is in trouble. And he's going to ask around and see what he can find out. They head to the truck, and of course, Archie is gone. Archie. At the lodge apartment, Nana predicts Polly is going to have twins. Alice tells Betty it's ridiculous. And Alice realizes that Betty and Jughead are dating. Veronica saves the day. I think one of my favorite lines in this, again, another brilliant, this is a credit to both the writers and Madeleine's amazing performance. Mm-hmm. But as Nana's doing the reading, Polly says, Nana has dementia and gypsy blood. So could be something, could be nothing. Just love that line. It's a great. So Polly's opening gifts. Betty gives her Alice's gift. It's the nightlight from when she was a child. Archie rushes in, beelines for Jughead, confronts him about FP being a serpent. Betty had no clue. Veronica checks them both. Polly opens gift of an antique rocking horse from Penelope. She asks Polly again to come live at Thornhill, setting Alice off.
Alice has some great lines in that moment too.
Oh my gosh, Alice, Machen is, defies expectations as far as what you would think this role to be. And very similarly to Luke, where you could go, yeah, no, this is stunt casting. But who else would do this role?
Honestly, I couldn't think of anyone else. It's so interesting to me because Machen is so unlike Alice. She's very kind of bohemian, I guess. And
that's how I would describe her.
Yeah, and here she is playing this really, really uptight woman, and what we were told was we want to look for basically Annette Bening in American Beauty.
Okay.
That was a prototype for this character.
Sure.
And so initially Machen didn't necessarily come to mind because, again, the way that I know her to be is a little more of a free spirit than this. But she came in and auditioned and blew us away. I mean, she's an actor. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to play different roles, but you don't always expect that kind of thing. People make it big playing one thing really, really well, and sometimes you assume, unfortunately, that's what they can do. And as their characters and as actors, they're just constantly surprising me, which I love. I mean, she terrified me in the pilot. She was so mean. She's so mean.
I loved
the character.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Machen is. We've had her on the show.
Good,
Machen was with Natalie. The two moms were together, and
her accent, by the way, who knew?
Who knew? In fact, I didn't even know until I met her in person. And we're talking now about Natalie Bolt, who plays Penelope Blossom. Is New Zealand by way of South Africa.
Yes.
So there is a very pronounced accent that I didn't know. I had, KJ we all knew about. But Natalie's was, I was like, wow, okay, wow.
Yeah.
But I agree with you with Machen. She is lovely and a total bohemian and not someone you would automatically think to play this sort of buttoned up character.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think also it's fun because she brings a sexuality to it too, which I think this could be a very sort of matronly, like tightly wound woman. And, it's a CW show and it offers, more storytelling for potential romances and
absolutely.
Yeah.
She's so much fun to watch and always a surprise. I always like to compare her role with that of and performance with that of Madeleine's as Cheryl, where these are two characters that because of the nature of what they have to do, what their arc is, could very easily turn into this sort of operatic one note bad guy character, but they're both able to ground it in believability and authenticity that makes them these are the epitome of anti-heroes, where there's lots of reasons not to like them,
right?
But boy, you hurt for them and you feel sorry for them,
especially Alice in this episode. I mean, it breaks my heart, her coming up, the stuff with Hal towards the end, and then with Betty, the last scene. It explains where all this rage is coming from. And Machen handles it so beautifully.
She does. So at the top of Act 5, Betty urges Alice to talk with Polly. Alice apologizes, wants Polly to come home. Polly reveals that Hal tried to make her have an abortion. Alice is absolutely horrified. It's a tough scene.
She goes after him.
Yeah. She absolutely goes after him. In our next scene, Andrew's house, Archie finds Fred sitting with a beer. Fred's annoyed Archie went to the pool hall trying to help him. Archie explains that Fred's legacy is his too, and he'll do what he can to help. And this scene is a heartbreaker. And I always used for Luke's portrayal, I always used that first scene on the porch in the pilot as being sort of this touchstone. And as you said, it was actually the scene that he auditioned with, which is amazing. But boy, this scene just tears you up inside because it's a guy who's trying to keep it together in spite of his marriage failing and his business failing, and he's trying to be so much more for his son. And he's a human being. He's all of that is in that performance, and it's just so good. And I think once again, it's where Riverdale defies expectations. I can't think of any other shows that where it's a murder mystery that would also have this very deep personal point of view. But amazing. And again, beyond stunt casting, I can't imagine anyone else being Fred Andrews, honestly.
I agree. Yep.
Into the lodge apartment, Betty finds Jughead waiting. If we're going to be together, she needs to know all of him. He shouldn't be embarrassed about his family. Has he met hers? And then they need to go talk to FP at FP's trailer that night. They talk about Jason. He was going to do one drug run for the Serpents. When the delivery wasn't made, the Serpents just thought he ran with the dope. Jug asks directly if FP killed Jason, and he says no. Betty asks Jug later if he believes FP. He does, and so Betty's going to believe Jug. And here's where we get to this amazing Machen scene. It's the last one at the Cooper house. Alice confronts Hal about setting Polly up for an abortion, and we reveal that he had done this to her back when they were in high school. And it's a heartbreaker. And again, Machen, your heart breaks for her, and she's amazing.
Yeah, she really is
so great.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing to see this character being given such a layered performance that it could easily be brushed over. Yeah. And again, Machen, huge fan of yours. That in particular, she's like, I gotta say hi to David.
Oh, she's so sweet.
Top of Act 6, Jug finds Archie tuning his guitar. Jug should have told Archie about FP. They're like brothers after all. FP gets Joaquin to hide Jason's Letterman jacket. It's their insurance policy. Joaquin confirms that Kevin is falling for him, which is good because they're going to need that Keller connection. Uh-oh. Not good. Yeah, and boy, the actor, and his name is slipping from me right now, who plays Joaquin.
Rob Rocco.
Rob.
Yeah.
Another really good
Yep.
layered performance here because, it's in this scene in particular, we're setting Kevin up because the idea here is that, Joaquin has been sent in to infiltrate the group to find out what they know. But Rob gives a performance where you're like, yeah, and I think Joaquin is a little lost in this.
Yeah.
He's a little too deep undercover, as they might say.
He's also a musician.
Yes.
Yeah. So just in case, he needs to join the Pussycats or something,
Well, the battle of the bands with the Serpents versus the Pussycats.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one. So at the Andrews construction trailer, Fred and Hermione leave the trailer. She's made calls to neighboring area for crew. And sure enough, FP and the Serpents arrive to crew up. Fred takes the Serpents to the work site. Hermione and FP talk. And we hear that the goons were from Montreal. Perhaps Hiram heard about the Fred-Hermione romance and that this is some vengeance on that half. Then over to the lodge apartment, Betty and Polly talk about Alice kicking Hal out of the house. Polly arrives at Thornhill Cab. She has chosen the Blossoms, and Alice is shattered. Really another amazing performance by Machen. These emotional scenes that I don't know. I'm not seeing on a lot of other shows where we're allowed to get that close to people.
I agree. I mean, on paper, a teen show on the CW, this is not what you're expecting.
Yeah.
This is to me, this is my so-called life level. This is just something that's so real and it's so raw, and they're dealing with so many real issues in a very human way. And again, just as we're focusing on these actors, they just knock it out of the park each time. They really do. I could not be more proud of them. I have this sense of ownership in the way that if they feel like kind of family, I'm looking out for them and I want them to do well. And it's watching them all blossom. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's really, really incredible. They work really, really well together, and they're kind to each other too. So
they really are. Let's talk a little bit about, because we didn't address it earlier. what do you do as far as a chemistry read is concerned?
Well, ideally, we want a chemistry read everyone together, but the reality of that is that's just not going to happen. You know, you have KJ in New Zealand and this one in New York and that one in LA. And so you try. I will say I remember on this one, we did do chemistry reads with Veronica and Archie, with several people that weren't cast. And I remember this because, you know, you bring people into a chemistry read in front of the studio and there's about 15 people in folding chairs sitting in this small office watching them up close. And the Archie and Veronica's are reading the scene where they kiss in the closet in the pilot. Mm-hmm. And the guys and the girls went for it. And, you know, sometimes you keep one Archie in and you bring in several different Veronicas. And there's this one guy who's making out with 5 girls. And, you know, that's his day, and doing it in front of, you know, a group of executives and casting people. And I sit there thinking, God, this is so bizarre. This is my job. And I'm sure he's thinking, God, this is so bizarre. But, you know, you're looking for a certain spark in someone, to see how they play off each other, to see if they build each other up, to see if they're exciting to watch together. Some actors make other actors better, some make them worse, what have you. So there's a lot to be told in a chemistry read. And I also remember we did chemistry reads for this show in particular with Betty, Veronica, and Cheryl. And I think at this point we had cast Cheryl and Betty, and we were testing different Veronicas with them. And you know, we tested some really, really great women, but there was just it just works. There's it's chemistry. That's why it's called the chemistry test, that you just see sort of click into place. And we had Camila and Madeleine and Lily all together. And in life they're all friends. So it seems to make sense.
Yeah.
And again, once you see them all together, you realize, oh, you know, none of them could play the other role. They're all so specifically their own role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's talk about this, because I think it was Lily who told me that during her audition, I guess maybe during a chemistry read for her, mm-hmm. that, and if you'll know better than I, but that it was the kissing scene. And she didn't do it, and then she felt, or am I thinking of a different actor? Oh. Someone didn't do the kiss and then found out that everyone else had been kissing.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I don't think Lily had a kissing scene in the pilot.
Okay, maybe it was,
except for like with Veronica, but I don't think we auditioned that scene.
Maybe it was Camilla, and if so, I'm just completely screwing up the story. But there was one of the actresses came out and found out after the fact that I think she didn't do the kiss at the audition and just sort of ended the scene that way, and went out into the hallway and found out
everyone else was kissing.
Yeah, and then went, no.
Well, I will say there were some people that really went for it, like a little past, you know, the point of the scene.
Just trying to make casting people really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, if they met someone they like, then all the better. You know, I always say we're kind of like matchmakers. You know, we get a sense of people, and because we don't honestly get to do chemistry reads as much as we'd like to, so we have to assume that someone is going to work well with the other person.
Right.
And maybe not on screen, but maybe off screen they'll find love in the audition room. Who knows?
There you go.
Stranger things have happened.
Here's an interesting actor question for you, for the actors listening. In a scenario, because it is not uncommon for when casting couples, especially in a chemistry read, for the scene that you're reading to lead up to a kiss, because they tend to be the very passionate conversations. Do you, as casting director, do you ever hold anything against an actor who decides to end the scene before the kiss?
No, God, no. I think, you know, there's a time and a place for that. I tend to tell actors, especially on these shows that involve a lot of stunts and physical stuff, we're looking for, you know, the chest to head, the sort of the TV news anchor ratio. We're looking to see what's happening there just on you. We're not looking for that physical interaction necessarily. I assume you can kiss or throw a punch or whatever, and if we need you to do more, we'll get a stunt person. So I think actors would overthink it and come in and say, well, you know, I can kick and do a cartwheel and do all that stuff. It's unnecessary, and it kind of takes you out of the scene. It's unfortunate because you want to play the full breadth of the scene, but what I'm looking for is you know, the chest to right above the head, and really looking at what's going on in their eyes and their connection. And so I wouldn't encourage anyone to kiss a casting director, sorry, in an audition, or, I've had people pull knives on me and in violent scenes, not just, in life, but
just walking around.
Just walking around, they do it. And people get pretty aggressive in those scenes, and it must be difficult. I imagine, you want to really get involved in a scene, but the unfortunate part of an audition is that that's not what it's about. It's about your close up and,
right.
Your commitment to the character without physically, getting the other person involved, because chances are you won't be reading at an audition with a scene partner. You'll either be reading with another actor who you've just met or with a casting director. And I don't think unless you've previously laid down, look, I want to throw a punch here, pretend to do this, it's not going to make sense, and it takes too much to block out. And the audition is supposed to be quick. It's supposed to be a quick tell of
right.
whether you're right or not for the character, and you'll figure all that stuff out later on set.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the priority number one is that they know how to act.
Absolutely.
After that, everything is sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're again, like with KJ, I honestly never heard him sing or play guitar until later in the process. And I think as much as I knew that was a big part of the character, I wasn't going to limit myself by only seeing kids who could sing and play guitar, because we could always dub someone, we could teach them how to play the guitar. But the fact that KJ was such, a master at it, I mean, he is really impressive. It's incredible.
I heard he wowed the room. I believe Sarah Schechter told the story, wowing the room by an Eddie Van Halen inspired.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
It was crazy. I mean, what a crazy choice, but it just worked. And I knew he got the job afterwards. I wasn't allowed to tell him because he came back in to get so we came in to audition for the final test with the network. And he left his guitar and amplifier, I guess, in the room, and he left, and we all talked and decided KJ's the guy. And he came back in to get his guitar. And I remember, like, I'm obviously not allowed to tell him that he got the role, but like trying to tell him through my eyes with like this big smile, like, it's you, you got it. Because I mean, he nailed it in a way that I think most actors dream of nailing it in a room. Like he just did not miss a beat. And I wanted to be that one to, so selfishly just be like, dude, it's yours, and we got here together and all this stuff. But I don't know if he knew, but I hope he knew in his own being that he did everything he could do to book that.
So how does that work? So you're not allowed to
there's
be
a
the
whole
person?
Process where I have to. I call the agent and let them know after business affairs that the studio and the network have connected and confirmed, and then it's a whole big process. And then the agent usually calls them, and then after that, I give the actor's number to the showrunner, like Roberto, and Roberto will call them and congratulate them. And
amazing.
Yeah.
So before we have a question from the crowd, but before we get to that, I want to know, and I think the actors listening would like to know, biggest pet peeves of actors coming into a room. And you must have them.
I have plenty. I do. I love actors, but I have my pet peeves. I think my biggest pet peeves. Okay, God, where do I start? I love this question.
Good.
One, I started off as an intern, and then an assistant, and then an associate, and then a casting director. And I remember the actors that were nice to me in the waiting rooms when I was an intern and an assistant. I remember the ones that were nasty to me. And again, as I said before, like, we are kind of HR people. I'm looking for nice people to really that I want to work with, that want to work with other people. And I just say, be nice to everyone. Don't undermine the actor in the waiting room. Don't be rude to an assistant because they're an assistant. That assistant will one day be a casting director, and they will remember everything. I promise you. There's just no reason. That comes out of insecurity, and it seems obvious, but I understand you're in that space and you're nervous and there's people looking at you, and you just, sometimes you're just not the nicest person in the world. But again, this is not just about your acting. It's about how you walk into the room, how you greet people, being professional and being courteous. So that's number one. On the other side of that, know when to leave the room. It's so awkward, going into an audition and you do the scene, and a lot of times producers aren't very communicative at the end of a scene, and I'll sort of jump in and say, thank you so much, that was great, and that's your cue to get the hell out of there. I think as an actor who wants to show that they've trained and studied and they can do the scene 15 different ways and different accents, and ask, can I do it again, can I do it this way, take my lead. Maybe one time was enough. Maybe you really nailed it after one time. And it's got to be tough to walk out of there, but you have to know when to leave, because otherwise it feels as if you're being very needy, and it makes everyone in the room uncomfortable. And that's just a trick you learn by going in on auditions. If you're a novice actor, you'll learn that. You'll pick up on those cues when a casting director says it's great. That's them saying thank you very much, leave. It doesn't mean that's the best audition I've seen all day. It's just a courteous way of saying that's great, time to go. Yeah. And it's you can't do this job as an actor to appease anyone else. You can't assume you're doing what I want you to do, what the producers want you to do. You have to do it for yourself. So if you're sitting there waiting for feedback, you're only going to get disappointed, because auditions are not work sessions, or not workshops. They are auditions. We're going to be pleasant. You're going to be pleasant. We're all basically lying to each other's face, but it's really disappointing if you're looking for that specific feedback in the room and you're hanging on it, because a lot of great, as I said, we had some amazing actors audition for this show. Tonally, they just weren't totally right and they didn't get it. It doesn't mean they should quit the business. It doesn't mean that they're awful people or anything like that. It wasn't the right time. And I met a lot of great actors on this pilot that did not book the pilot that I'm sure I will bring in and cast on other things. So as I said, always think about like I said at the beginning of this, you're not interviewing or auditioning for the job at hand. It's always for something else down the line. That's right. And this town becomes very, very small the longer you're in it, and you will see a lot of the same people over and over and over again. So there is no reason to not be nice and do your best every time you go in, because people will remember those kind people. They'll want to surround themselves with those kinds of people, and they'll remember the jerks as well. I mean, there are a lot of people that I won't have in again because of the way they either treated me or their actors or what have you. I kind of skipped around there, but I think hopefully you got the point.
No, I love it. It is. I am personally a firm believer in, regardless of how great a artist you are in whatever your endeavor, I don't want to work with you if you're a horrible human being.
Absolutely.
I would rather work with a bunch of really nice, moderately talented people than a really talented, terrible human being.
I agree. Yeah.
But so your, for lack of a better term, your chemistry read really starts the moment you step off the elevator.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a fascinating social experiment to be a casting director, to watch people walk into a room and greet people. I mean, if I see, let's say 50 people a day, the way that each one comes in and either walks in with confidence, with overconfidence, with no confidence, they can't find their papers, they're going through their purse or this or that, they just come in prepared, they know their lines, they do the scene and they leave. I mean, it's fascinating to watch how different people both interpret the audition itself in terms of walking in and walking out, and then how they interpret the actual material as well. And I'm looking at all that stuff. And I'm not doing it from a negative point. I'm doing it. I am making a judgment, but a judgment based on the job at hand. Right. So I think a big pet peeve of mine is actors thinking that casting directors are working against them or looking for them to fail, which we talked about earlier too. I mean, that's not at all the case.
Yeah.
I really do genuinely want people to do well, and I think that we're working as collaborators to try and find this character together, with the producers, with the director, and ideally we're looking at it as a collaboration.
Right. And it was a recurring theme with all the actors that I spoke with, but the reality of it is exactly what you said. There are so many variables that the actor is completely unaware of.
Oh, for sure.
That they also have no control over. And I like, it's interesting. So you really wanted to congratulate KJ, but because of, for lack of a better term, professional bureaucracy, you can't,
right.
Because that's the way it works. And so that turns into lack of information to the actor, and sometimes that lack of information goes on for weeks and months.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't know, and then you start. I had with Lily and Madeline, we talked about it. It's that time that you don't know, where you just start coming to your own conclusions, and you never come to really positive conclusions.
No. Oh, Corey, look, we all do it. We all do it,
right.
And I go out for jobs now when I meet and I see other casting directors in the waiting room too, and I go through the same exact thing. It can drive you crazy. And I wish I knew the secret. I would share with everyone to not let it get to you. But
Right.
it is, so many of these decisions are out of our hand. And we all want everyone to like us. And they're not going to. You know, something that's really interesting about casting too is I bring some people into a room, let's say for Arrow, and the producers love that person. They think, oh my God, this person's a star. We got to hire them right away. And then I bring that same person into the room for The Flash. And those producers just don't get that actor, whether, you know, it's personal taste or they're just not as right for the role. So you can't let someone else's taste or point of view dictate
Right. how
good you are or what you're worth or what have you, because it changes. I see it. I'm doing 6 shows right now, and it changes from room to room to room. It really takes a lot of things working in the right going in your direction to get cast in something, and it's difficult. It's a really, really, really tough thing for an actor to go through that process. So I give them so much credit.
But you have to know you're doing the right thing if the casting director asks you back.
Absolutely, they like something that you did.
That's the Medal of Honor right there,
for sure.
Okay, so our question from Twitter from MK Hey. All right. I'm going to ask this one. She had 2 questions.
Okay.
I'm assuming this is a she. I don't know why I think it's a she. And so this first one, feel free to pass on if you decide that it's would be uncouth. Were there any well-known actors that were floated around during the casting process? I guess maybe in name, or I probably don't want to mention people that actually auditioned.
No, I won't mention people that auditioned, but I will say yes. I mean, part of casting is we're selling a product, right? And you want to make sure that the most amount of people see and buy this product. And one of the ways to do that is to get a recognizable face, right, to help get the product out there. So every time, regardless of what role it is, whether it's a guest star or series regular, lead of a pilot or small role, we do consider namey people. For me, where casting gets most interesting is when we either decide we don't need a namey person, or those namey people pass on the project, and I'm allowed to really search and discover and find new actors or actors that are new to the mainstream audience, let's say for a lot of these younger kids on the show, and really discover that talent. So, not that Zac Efron was... He's too old for Archie now, but just as an example, someone may have brought him up and say, look, the show will get picked up for sure if you have Zac Efron as the lead. And yeah, that would have been a fun show to make, but it's also kind of boring. I think you know what to expect from that. And I love the idea of sort of discovering KJ Apa, because there's no expectations on him. No one really, for the most part, the mainstream audience doesn't know who he is. And I think it allows you to fall more deeply into the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Especially with characters that are of a known quantity. Mm-hmm. If it's an actor that you already know as well, mm-hmm, you are going to constantly compare what that actor has done with previous things that they've already done.
For sure.
Which works for our show, mm-hmm, works well for the parents, mm-hmm, but I love the fact that the Archie gang is by and large unknowns.
Oh, well, even Luke Perry, there are a lot of people that I talk to that, I don't know. I never watched 90210.
Oh, that's a good point.
Are you 14? How did you not watch 90210? What do you mean? But then again, there are a lot of 14-year-olds that don't know those actors, and they're new to them.
Right.
So it's really interesting, and it's interesting how so many different people at different ages watch the show and relate to it on so many different levels. The way that, going back to my so-called life, when I was a kid, I used to fast forward through the parts of the adults. I mean, through the parents. And now when I go back and watch it on DVD, I pay closer attention to them, and it makes so much more sense because I'm so much further removed from the teenage experience.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
David, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
This has been absolute blast and really insightful. We're definitely going to put this out there to our young actors because there's actually a lot to learn from.
Oh, great.
In this conversation. Remember, Riverdale is on the CW Thursday nights at 9:00. Until next time, # Riverdale Strong.
My, hey, hey. Rock and roll is here to stay. It's better to burn out than to fade away. They give you this, but you pay for that. And once you're gone, you can never come back. When you're out of the blue and into the black. King is gone, but he's not forgotten. This is the story of Johnny Rotten. It's better to burn out than it is to rust. The king is gone, but he's not forgotten. Rock and roll can never die. There's more to the picture than meets the eye. Hey, hey, my, my.
Greg, move your head.